Forza 7 has changed so much since launch. So much so that I felt the need to update my review I did last year. For those that haven't seen it, I will link it down in the description, but there's a lot of things which have changed since that video, like in dramatic ways, and it's actually a bit ridiculous, but I actually am going to go back on a lot of what I said back a year ago. The removal of loot boxes, a new drifting mode with drifting tuning, drag modes have been added to online, as well as actually having hoppers, just to name a few things which have been added to this game. There's so many more free cars and just other free updates that we've had, and I just kind of want to go in depth with it for like the next 10 minutes and talk about Forza 7 in 2019. So like I said, Forza has changed a lot in this past year. We're kind of going to be talking a lot about the changes. The core fundamentals of the game haven't really changed. The handling is still good, the car list is still what it is, and the DLC practices have changed somewhat, but still aren't my favourite way of doing things in the racing scene, I guess you could say. But the positives just hugely outweigh the negatives. I think Forza 7 alongside with Forza Horizon 4 are some of the best kind of examples in the racing space of how to update your game as a live service game, but also how to keep people happy. I don't know what's happened with Xbox and Forza in the last year, but things have dramatically changed from the Forza we knew prior, where we wouldn't hear too much after the game's launch. There wouldn't be much support from the games after launch. It's a lot different now. Things have changed. Things like the drifting update, which we're going to talk a bit more in depth a bit later, have genuinely brought a new life to this game, and it's almost having a second revival, kind of very similar to Rainbow Six Siege if anyone's played that. So let's go ahead and talk about the updates and little changes they've made first, and then talk to kind of like the big things which are keeping me engaged in Forza 7 as a whole.
Removing the loot box.
A necessary thing, but something which I think needed to happen. I think it was inevitable that it was going to happen. Obviously, after the whole thing that happened with EA last year with Star Wars and stuff, I think it was inevitable that this was going to happen just across the board. But it's something I have to mention. It shows intent, and it shows, you know, they know what they're doing with this kind of stuff. And furthermore, before we get into the good points, I do still want to say, I feel like the amount of DLC in Forza games, paid DLC that is still overwhelming. It's still too much. It's one of those things with Forza's car list. Now it's getting to the point where I'm starting to not prefer having so many cars, because there's almost too much choice, and I feel like the DLC cars, I feel like there's too many of them, and it just gets a bit overwhelming. I've talked about my problems with this model in the past. It's obviously better now because we're getting a lot more free stuff, like the drift updates, like the drag updates, so it kind of is compensated, but I'm still not a big fan of how the DLC's done. However, obviously the loot box is being removed for this new system which has been introduced is obviously always a great thing. So I had to mention that before we went on to the other things, because, you know, even though it's pretty obvious, plain dry, you guys don't want to hear me talk about this for too long. It's something which we do need to mention because it is still important. Actual hoppers. Now, this was something which was fixed relatively quickly after I made my review, which is so typical. But one thing which I really struggled with playing Forza, you know, before it went out to public release and stuff, was the hoppers. There was no hoppers, there was no drift hoppers, there was nothing like that. But since then, they've really improved all this. Not only are all, you know, the normal hoppers back, but there's also like meetup drift hoppers and stuff, which is cool stuff they've added. I really do like the fact they've done this, and it just makes online so much better. Not only that, but the competitive online is so much more engaging because of the casual being engaging as well. Me, I'm not really that big in competitive, at least I'm not now at least. It's something that I do want to get into more in the future, but definitely being able just to test cars in my casual playlist and then go over to the ranked stuff and do ranked, it's all just a lot more streamlined now. Something which I have to mention because it was atrocious this time last year, and it's been much improved. Again, something which I think was necessary for them to do, but something which I'm happy they did anyway, because I'm sure a few years ago that may not have been the case. So actually having hoppers now, fantastic. Drift and drag modes, as well as the tuning. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too well versed in the drag stuff, so I'm gonna keep most of this kind of section of the video mainly talking about the drift stuff, because that's kind of what I know best. Whenever I used to play Forza, drifting was one of the things I always used to do. Not particularly good at it, but it was always one of those things I really enjoyed doing. I obviously know how to do it, so it's one of those things. I'm not amazing to the point where I'm gonna be coming first in every public lobby, but I can drift, I can do it, it's fun to me. I find it really relaxing for some reason, but it's really fun in Forza 7. Now, I actually went on earlier to go ahead and get a bit of gameplay, so I'm going to let that roll and maybe talk in between the things that are happening, just so I can talk about what's going on. But yeah, I popped on Forza 7 for the first time in ages earlier, and this happened. Right, so we're about to go and drift also on Forza 7. I'm playing my audio, my game audio out of the TV, so if you do start hearing that's why. Now, one thing which immediately took quite a while was the lobbies. You're taking the piss. 7 minutes? What do you mean 7 minutes? Just put me in a fucking drift lobby. Oh my god. We're going to search it one more time. I want to be at least in a rear-wheel drive lobby if we're going to wait for this long. Not in a ghost one where all-wheel drive cars are usable. So we're going to give this one more go and see if that works. Now, weirdly enough, this was actually one of my complaints in the review I made. Getting into games and getting into lobbies still takes way too long. I don't think it's something they can fix because I think it's a base game problem. But getting into hoppers and even loading into races is still a pain in this game. But eventually, we finally got it. And you know what? I wasn't actually that rusty. Oh, it's your boy. It's your boy. Yo, I'm actually first right now. What is going on? Honestly, the amount of angle you can get after the drift update. Obviously, this is a drift car, so it has the drift suspension. Oh, what are you doing, you Oh, look at that entry. How smooth it... Okay, I misshifted, but we don't need to talk about that. Oh my lord, look at the angle I put through there! What the fuck? That's crazy. Honestly, obviously these are two different games, but Playground, you need to take some notes from the physics of the drift handling in Motorsport, because this is leaps and bounds better than anything that's in Horizon. Maybe other than the FD cars, the Formula Drift cars. This is just... I've actually forgot how good it is. This is so good. And that kind of sums it up, really. I think I kind of forgot how much fun this game really is after all its updates. I obviously have played it in between every single update it's had, so the drift update, the drag update and stuff. 7th place. You know what? That's alright. I'll take it. That's not too bad. First time I played Forza in a while, so... Namaste. This game, especially if you have an Xbox, I think is the best, you know, track racer on Xbox. And then if you include, you know, Gran Turismo Sport in that kind of business, it's still really high up there. This is a prime example of how to save a game which was fundamentally flawed when it released. If you are an Xbox, try it if you're on Game Pass. It's definitely worth a try. And even if not, it's still pretty cheap, like 20 quid, 30 quid maybe if you get it pre-owned. It's worth a try, honestly, even though the game has bucket loads of DLC, which is always going to be my main problem. The core of the game, all the modes, the competitive, the all of it, it's an absolutely fantastic package, and I've got to say, it's definitely worth the 20 to 30 pounds that you pay for it. I don't think I'd ever make a follow-up video to a review I've done if there wasn't really a need. I think this time around, this game genuinely deserves it because it's pretty much solved all the problems that I had in the review, minus some of the loading problems and the DLC problems. But overall, this game's really good, and I can see this getting, you know, support even further on, you know, for years to come. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this little different video. If you did, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, let me know what you think of the format of the video. But that's been it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit the like, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys have been awesome. Stay safe and peace.